In clinical and educational settings, a printed intelligence test report carries an enormous amount of weight. A single number stamped on a page can dictate academic placement, secure government funding, or determine clinical diagnoses with immediate finality. Publicly, that single metric, the global IQ score, is often treated as a definitive, unchangeable biological measurement of a person's innate cognitive capacity. In practice, global IQ functions as a statistical estimate rather than a biological absolute. It represents a calculated probability, bounded by strict mathematical limits and sensitive to environmental noise. A psychometric assessment is an engineered instrument. To understand it, we must shatter the top-line number and examine the mechanics underneath. The components are held together by mathematical reliability, measured against theoretical validity, and filtered through systemic biases.
To understand what an intelligence test actually measures, we have to work backwards from that final score. Treating a single number as the totality of human cognition is impossible without first proving the structural integrity of the test itself. The first mandatory pillar of any psychological assessment is reliability. In psychometrics, reliability refers purely to consistency. It is the mathematical precision of a measuring instrument when applied under comparable conditions, assuming the underlying ability hasn't changed. This data table compares the reliability measures for gold standard modern intelligence tests like the Stanford Binet 5 and the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale 4th edition. Notice the incredibly tight correlation bands ranging from 0.87 to 0.99 across different metrics. This high precision operates along three specific axes. First is internal consistency, whether related items within the test produce consistent results. For the full-scale IQ, these estimates range from 0.95 to 0.98, indicating near-perfect internal alignment. The second axis is inter-rater reliability. If different independent psychologists score the exact same test, they must calculate the same outcome. The WAIS-4 demonstrates a 0.98 to 0.99 consistency between independent scores. The third axis is test-retest reliability. If a subject takes the test multiple times, their scores remain stable. Correlations in the high 90s are exceptionally rare in psychological measurement, proving these tests are highly engineered precision engines. However, relying solely on mathematical reliability creates a dangerous clinical blind spot. An instrument can be perfectly mechanically reliable while being completely scientifically invalid. A miscalibrated scale will give you the same incorrect reading every single time. That brings us to the second pillar, validity. This is the empirical evidence verifying that a test actually measures the specific cognitive trait it was designed to measure, rather than contextual noise. To achieve this, psychologists test for construct validity. This safeguard ensures that the resulting score reflects theoretical cognitive intelligence, distinct from unrelated characteristics like personality traits or physical stamina. They also demand content validity. The test must cover a wide breadth of functions, from verbal skills to abstract thinking and spatial reasoning, to capture the full scope of the cognitive construct. This is entirely distinct from face validity, which is a superficial assessment of whether a test merely looks like an intelligence test. Modern psychometrics requires rigorous statistical proof through criterion-related validity. This scatter plot illustrates predictive validity, gauging the test's ability to predict relevant future outcomes, like academic performance. Researchers like Burton et al. Have found a moderate positive correlation between 0.5 and 0.7 when charting IQ scores against academic grades. This proves these assessments are highly useful predictors, though they do not determine actual outcomes. Furthermore, concurrent validity ensures these scores correlate strongly with other appropriate established measures of intelligence taken simultaneously. Validity acts as a multi-layered verification filter. Without it, a highly reliable score is just a mathematically precise error. Returning to the initial global IQ score printed on a clinical report exposes its primary structural flaw. It is a macro-level estimate. It averages out the data, masking the specific mechanical workings of a person's mind. Modern psychometrics has transitioned toward multi-factor analysis,
relying on updated structures like the revised 5-factor profile found in the upcoming WACE-5. This multi-factor profile reveals uneven patterns of cognitive strengths and difficulties. A singular averaged number completely obscures these details. For example, an individual might score exceptionally high in visual-spatial reasoning, while simultaneously presenting steep deficits in working memory. The global score hides this vital clinical distinction. Alternative frameworks exist, such as Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which proposes several distinct, independent abilities and remains immensely popular in educational settings. However, strict psychometric research provides limited support for treating those domains as fully independent. The empirical consensus supports a blend of general cognitive ability alongside broader, specific cognitive domains. Relying on a single global IQ score is like judging a complex machine's health by looking only at its total power output, while completely ignoring the specific internal gears that might be failing. Even if an assessment achieves flawless mathematical reliability and rigorous construct validity, the resulting score remains highly vulnerable to invisible environmental interference. The primary systemic filter is linguistic bias. Tests administered in a dominant language, like English, rely heavily on test-specific academic vocabulary. This systematically disadvantages conversationally fluent but non-native speakers, artificially lowering their score by testing their language proficiency rather than their true underlying cognitive ability. Similarly, cultural bias occurs when test content and standardization norms inherently favor the lived experiences and cultural contexts of one specific group over another. Psychologists attempt to bypass this by utilizing culture-fair visual sequence puzzles, but the ethical reality of the field acknowledges that no intelligence test is entirely culture-free. This line graph charts the Flynn effect, the observed historical rise in average intelligence test performance across generations and cultures. The Flynn effect exposes a critical danger. If a test is not rigorously re-standardized against updated demographic norms, the interpretation of an individual's score becomes entirely distorted against an outdated baseline. Research by Brotsberg and Rojberg demonstrates both rises and reversals of these scores within families, proving these generational shifts are driven by environmental factors, education and health, not rapid biological evolution. Test administrators must also account for transient physical barriers. Sensory access needs, motor impairments, or intense test anxiety can temporarily block a subject's cognitive access to the test material, misrepresenting their capacity. Conversely, it is a common assumption that a lack of motivation or a drop in effort causes massive